Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time round we're wading through the sewage-coloured waters of Putrefier. What is Putrefier exactly? Well, for one, it is a single map creation taking pretty heavy inspiration from the likes of Quake and Quake 2, what with the various shades of brown and grey we got going on here in this particular industrial installation. But don't let the color palette here distract from your potential enjoyment of this particular map, because if you look a little closer, pay a little more attention to the environment you're rampaging through here, you'll discover all sorts of really neat, genuinely cool touches that, even with the advent of source ports such as GZ Doom and the advanced mapping tools that they provide, are pretty damn tricky to pull off. Including one of my personal favorite things here, sideways opening doors. Ooh, it is nice. And immediately following that, you've got stuff like the shadows of the spinning fans on the ground there. I have no idea how to pull that kind of stuff off, and it's just little things like that. You could point yourself in any given direction here in Putrefier and still find something impressive to look at and coo over. With that in mind, it should then come as no surprise that Putrefier here also just happens to be a 2012 CACO award-winning mod, the product of just one guy's work, which impresses me even more. There seems to be an absolute clarity of vision at work here. Nearly every single aspect of this map feels thoroughly unified and well integrated, to such a degree that immersion is a natural byproduct. You've got great use of shadows, of color, of blinking monitors, of minimal sound effects, and a sinister, ominous backing track guiding you through the entire thing. Each of these aspects are things that you'll encounter within just a few minutes of starting up Putrefier, and you'll just feel compelled as a result to explore what else this map has to offer, such as these little interactive screens here. Just such a really neat, cool touch. But naturally, it's not just about the level design here, and as we've already seen, this is a facility suffering from a little bit of a demonic infestation. Somewhat surprisingly, this is a map that doesn't really screw around with the sprite sheets all that much. You're not really going to find much of the extended bestiary here, and the same kind of goes for the weaponry as well. You're not going to find any interesting variations on the weapons here. Instead, this is a map that is more concerned with giving you an intense experience with the established formula, and you're really going to have to make sure you know your environments if you intend to survive most of these encounters, especially on difficulties such as Hurt Me Plenty and above. If one thing is certainly true of the encounters within Putrefier, it's that it's not afraid to make you face down a small horde of monsters in a confined space, and it certainly ramps up the tension. It's the kind of thing where you're acutely aware that there's only so far you're going to be able to move if you want to dodge something such as an Imp's Fireball or a Revenant's Projectile. Some may feel that encounters such as these may be unfair or even lazy design, but in Putrefier you suddenly realize that such encounters are easily overcome thanks to the layout and architecture of the level itself. You can't go far without discovering a hallway with support pillars for you to duck behind. You'll occasionally come across cargo crates that will handily shield you from incoming fire. Point being, Putrefier isn't a map that's just chucking hordes at you for the sake of it, it's chucking hordes at you because it knows that you can overcome them. I mean, sure, it's nothing especially revolutionary as far as core gameplay goes, but at the very least, I felt it was well implemented, especially as far as taking advantage of the environment that you'll be fighting within. If there's one criticism I could certainly level against Putrefier here, it would be that despite the wonderful interconnected nature of the level design at work here, it does have the unfortunate consequence of devolving into a little bit of a switch hunt. The problem with the switches here in Putrefier are twofold. Firstly, it's not always that easy to spot where the switch actually is. They have the occasional ability to blend in a little bit with the surrounding grey environments, meaning that if you're travelling at any reasonable speed here, you can just zip right past one of them and not even know they were there. Secondly, if you do happen upon a switch, it's not always that apparent what the switch actually does. I mean, sure, it might have the more immediate effect of summoning a bunch of monsters for you to dispatch, but when it comes to tracking down that shortcut that just opened up, or that locked door that suddenly sprang open, you're gonna have to do a fair bit of backtracking in order to discover where it actually is. Thankfully, however, this isn't anywhere near as frustrating as it could be, and that's thanks to the level layout itself, which is surprisingly compact. Honestly, when it comes to traveling from one side of this map to the other, especially once you've unlocked a few alternate routes, it doesn't really take that long at all. When it comes down to the things I least expected to run into during the course of Putrefier, I can safely say that Lovecraftian flesh horror is probably up there somewhere, not to mention the smaller flesh horrors slithering their way towards me here, but I was legitimately surprised by this when I ran into it first time round, so much so that I honestly just went, wow, that's pretty fucking cool out loud. You have to remember that up until this point, I'd been up against nothing but standard Doom enemies. There was no inkling, no hint that I was about to run into a fleshy horror, and it just came completely out of the blue, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. Hence the spoiler warning before this section, because ideally, I'd love for people to run into this the same way I did, hopefully have the same awestruck reaction to it. In any case, once we've dispatched with this troublesome cyber demon down here, we should be able to get back down the ramp and admire the abomination in all of its fleshy majesty. Let's have a peek, shall we? Good grief, just look at it, it actually moves and everything, that's fantastic, with those freaky appendages and what appears to be a monitor embedded in its fleshy master. And as far as I can tell, that seems to be a bit of a callback to the other flickering monitors throughout the installation. Maybe some underlying story, perhaps? It just makes me feel like there should be a continuation to this. I feel like there's a bigger story waiting to be told here. If you were thinking that reveal was the only trick Putrefier had up its sleeve, then I'm happy to inform you that you are in fact sorely mistaken. This isn't the kind of map that just introduces a Lovecraftian flesh horror and then just leaves it at that. No, this is the kind of map that introduces a Lovecraftian flesh horror and then turns it into an honest-to-God boss battle at the end of the map. It is friggin' fantastic. This was the second time that this map surprised me, and the reveal absolutely makes this. Just getting into this dimly lit room, thinking that you've dealt with everything else, all the hordes of pinkies that have been spilling out, and then the lights go up, and then this thing starts firing back at you, and you know you're in for something very interesting indeed. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is one of the most dynamic boss battles I've ever fought in the history of Doom maps ever. Quite the contrary. It's quite possibly one of the most stationary bosses I've ever had the pleasure of firing back against. However, you can't deny that this certainly makes for one hell of a climax. There's even some kind of strategy to employ here as well, using that pillar as vital cover while avoiding the strafing and lock-on fire of the core. It may not be particularly taxing or difficult, but it sure as shit is memorable. And even better, once you've destroyed the core, the map just doesn't simply end. You've got to make a mad dash to the finish. You've got to take that yellow key, remember where that yellow key switch is, and avoid the hordes of monsters that are now materializing in the facility. And first time round, I tried to stand my ground. It wasn't a very successful endeavor, because then I realized there's two archviles constantly reviving things at the back, and in all honesty, it does make for a very thrilling escape sequence as you frantically try to remember which route to take to get back to that vital exit switch. So, would I recommend Putrefier? Absolutely. This is a tremendous map in nearly every single regard. It is very much worthy of your time. It looks fantastic, it plays fantastic, and if you've had the willpower to skip to this section of the video, then you're going to have a lot of fun with the climax of this map. But in any case, if you feel like playing it yourself, the link is as usual in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments below, and feel free to suggest any mod you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.